He's fantastically engaging.
He's upfront with people. He doesn't play games.
Tends to make good mates out of his clients.
A real thinker.
He has a very strong moral core.
He's an idealist, and he's a pain in the ass at times about some of his wacky ideas.
I grew up over the road from the sea in Christchurch, and when I was about 3 or 4, I think, I spent a lot of time in bed. I had a whole lot of operations to move bones around my legs so that I could walk, and I was propped up in a bed that was right over the road from the sea. So I was kind of interested in that idea that you could be static and then have this really intimate experience, so that, by moving your eyes and not much more, you could experience quite a lot. Those two conditions of being static and of moving, both quite remarkable and quite dense, and both of them allow a lot of mining. There's a lot in there. They're not things to be taken lightly.
Pip is one of those architects who will just submerge himself into a project, and he will draw it and sketch it and think about it and talk to other people about it.
He totally challenges you all the time as to what your idea is. It's a very positive way of actually getting more out of an idea.
It's got to go through a whole process of being torn apart and reassembled and put back together upside down and around and about.
Yeah.
Nothing is taken for granted. Everything is questioned until it becomes a positive statement in the building that comes out at the end of it.
I don't give it my best when people come along and say, I want this, do it, and then insist that I do it. I read somewhere the other day that Frank Gehry said he didn't understand why it was people employ architects and then tell them what to do. So I'm not great at that, but equally so, I'm pretty useless when people say, make me a building. I really enjoy gouging into it. What are the hopes and dreams? What are the frameworks? What's the kind of intellectual intention? And that it becomes a discourse.
When you go through a project with Pip, and I've been through quite a number now, it's more expensive but a lot more fun than psychotherapy.
I'd met Pete Bosley at Canterbury when I was there. He started out doing law and got very friendly with Mel Bartlett. That was a kind of nexus of artifice, which was a kind of anti-architecture in a way, in the sense that it was a collective of people working together. None of us were registered, so we couldn't call ourselves architects.
I think we were just trying to do work. We just wanted to be architects, basically.
We were passionate about it. We wrote about it, we published a broadsheet, we spoke wherever we could. So we had a bloodlust for architecture and for talking about it.
Good morning, Pete Bosley. Yeah, sure. Yeah, we do a lot of alterations.
My main memory was just this kind of furious energy. That was my kind of impression of architecture. Life seemed to revolve very much for Pip around that studio. They'd have big shared lunches kind of every Friday. Everybody's partners and children would come in to eat at. And I think retrospectively I suspect that's because that's the only time that those kind of partners really saw the people working in those studios. It was just such a kind of furiously energetic thing.
In my last year at architecture school, I'd been doing the designs for a restaurant, the Melba, which gained major notoriety in the popular press at that time. And also, I guess it gained a bit of a notoriety amongst people who are likely to use architects to make houses.
Right, here's Let's all live on the bright side of life. Da-dum,
He's always loved working with complex issues. He's always got a very social approach. It's wonderful.
Interrogation is a good word when it comes to architecture, and certainly when it comes to Pip and interrogating ideas.
I don't know if it's comfortable. I think it's, he struggles with it and wrestles, and he loves wrestling and struggling.
It has to be something that challenges him, and not easy, That bloody hard actually would be quite good.
Pip will forever choose the harder path. He's a surfer with one leg. He lives in a house up a long kind of path with no kind of vehicle access.
Always physically set apart from people. So there is a sense of being other that I think I've experienced. And maybe that just gives me a kind of bloody mindedness that says, well, I know that that's the kind of what other people are doing, but I'm not other people. That's what seems the most important thing to me.
I think one building which exemplifies Pip's approach and skills and abilities is Kew Theatre, because it's an incredibly difficult building to achieve.
It's a building that has no kind of clear elevation or no clear form, and quite deliberately so. It presents the theatre as something in opposition to the great kind of civic monument with the flights of stairs and the columns and the big front doors.
I think that architecture's always had a responsibility to the public realm. We've got to leave the place better than you find it. Buildings have the ability to inspire and to do all those other kind of emotional things, but you've got to be able to boil an egg in a house, there's no point in meeting some social agenda if the base program is not met. So in a theatre, you've got to be able to sit in a seat, get good sight lines, get out and get your glass of Chardonnay at half time and all those sorts of things. But that's only a tenth of what theatre is about or what it has the potential to be.
The projects themselves are sort of acts of resistance. The Congreve was really declaring war almost on New Zealand architecture as a whole, and said that it was time to stop being kind of provincial and to start building with real kind of substance and conviction.
His projects don't have a Cheshire stamp. They're all really different, but they're also all the same. They also have the same DNA that runs through them, but it's not the more obvious stylistic DNAs that one might find in more orthodox practice.
His work is a product of the unique circumstances that surround every project. To come to a project without any preconceptions of an aesthetic outcome is the sort of most honest way to attack a project, and I guess that's something that I probably learned from my experience of working with him.
Sean Flanagan, this extraordinary young guy in our studio, said that he thought Pip was as interested in making architects as he was in making architecture. A lot of young architects have, I think, had quite special relationships with Pip because his practice is as much about empowering them to do great work, for themselves, as it is getting them to do good work for him.
I even remember him saying once that he felt sorry for anybody who didn't want to be an architect, and so he just spreads the word and tries to make it happen.
His desire to be involved in the social side of architecture, I think, has led him into projects which have a long-term impact. And something like Britomart, rather than looking at an actual building, you're seeing a kind of an atmosphere that's developing there now, and it's just transforming that part of the city.
And the work at Britomart, that's a really interesting sort of work because it's done by discussion and talking. I mean, there are probably only about 5 drawings.
There was 18 heritage buildings. There was a huge amount of preservation specification. But and that's sort of the theory side. But you have to create this living environment. That requires a lot of discussion. It's a contested process. I mean, we fight like hell in a very positive way.
You can nudge a developer or a council or some combination of those into some small move that might have repercussions a long way downstream. So, for example, there's a little lane, Rokai Lane. That came about by us just drawing it repeatedly on the plan, and it became a kind of fact. So, that strikes me as quite a rich addition to the city. A very small move, just a line on a page that separated 2 building lines. That's the pleasure of it, that you're making moves which are a direct response to a client, but they have huge implication for users, and then they have an implication for the city in general. Architects have a huge amount to offer in that respect by means of gathering together hopes and dreams and making them manifest, through a sketch, a drawing, a computer model, or something like that.
He talks a lot about hopes and aspirations as part of his job as an architect. So he really listens and hears what someone's aspirations might be in terms of the dreams that they have, and tries to give them those things. Pip really has an ability to feel out spaces and mould them, push them, shape them, cut them up. The house is just a pleasure and a joy to wake up in every day. I never ever take it for granted, and still learn from the house and what Pip's done with it.
I'm interested in the idea that you would make buildings which foreground people, so that the buildings are there. They're kind of like a stage set in a way, a place in which the human drama is played out.
I'm sure that getting this medal was a bloody uncomfortable thing for him. He's had to wrestle with it in his conscience. But I think that that's bloody good, make him wrestle.